It's a harrowing time for refugees and asylum seekers who have moved to the McKenzie Road Park near CPUT. Now, this is where they spent the night after they were evicted from two churches in Cape Town yesterday. Law enforcement officers have made their way to the park. You remember earlier on, we spoke to our reporter Nasipi Same, who was at the park, and we rejoin Nasipi now. Nasipi, once again, it looks like the events there are escalating. A little bit earlier on, I did see some of the refugees taking their bags, seemingly moving out of the park now that the 20 minutes deadline had actually passed. I see now that you are actually on the road. What is happening on the ground?
Well, what's currently happening is that law enforcement officers have decided to blockade the road, and this follows that 20-minute announcement by the sheriff asking refugees to leave the McKenzie Road Park. And basically, after them leaving, law enforcement officers then moved in, and as you can see, they have formed a human shield blocking off the road that refugees had decided to take their stuff and leave. And as you can hear, the refugees are still very much emotional and angry and asking law enforcement officers to shoot them.
Please help me understand this, Nasipi. The officers have blocked the road. Were the refugees actually trying to leave, and the road that has been blocked, is that the road that gives them access to leave the park?
Yes, this is one of the roads that gives them access to leave the park. And currently, we are still a bit confused as to where the refugees will go, as the sheriff had said that they do not want to see them seeking shelter on the streets of the CBD following that court order by the Western Cape High Court on the 17th of February.
So will the police then be following the refugees wherever it is that they decide to go within the city centre? Very clear that they have no place to go, and wherever it is that they move to, is the likelihood that the police will then follow them there and move them from there too?
No more South Africa, no more. You don't have a paper, you don't have a job.
Well, I think that is exactly what is going to happen, that law enforcement officers will ensure that they do not put up any structures in the CBD as per the court order. And we do understand that many of them are saying that they have no shelter and will not be going back to the communities that they come from, which was 5 months ago when they decided to leave the very same communities, citing fears of or rather citing concerns of their safety. And we do understand that the city has said that they will implement that bylaw which says that persons or people should not be putting up structures on the side paths in the CBD, or rather in the city of Cape Town, or putting up any fires. And basically what we also understand is that there isn't any emergency shelters for the refugees that will be leaving this park today. And the city is saying that there's many people on the housing waiting list that are also looking for emergency shelter, and they cannot be accommodating the refugees.
And I think it's perhaps important at this point, Nasipi, to once again, remind our viewers that there has been a process of documentation, authentication that has already taken place. And according to the Department of Home Affairs advocate Seth Ntai had said that only 68 of the refugees and asylum seekers were found to be undocumented. So those then have been dealt with. So the assumption then is that every single person that is there now who is a refugee or an asylum seeker is actually documented to be in the country under that particular stipulation.
Yes. So following the accommodation of the refugees at the church last year, after they were evacuated from their sit-in protest outside the UN offices, Home Affairs had been called in to assist by the Human Rights Commissioner in the Western Cape, Chris Nissen. However, they were chased away. But after February and the court order, they were Home Affairs was called in to assist the refugees and ensure that they are all documented. And I would assume that following that process, and we understand that it completed or rather finished not too long ago, I think about sometime last week, one would assume that all the refugees from the Green Market Square have all been documented.
Now, Nasipi, as far as the leaders are concerned, I did ask you about them a little bit earlier on. Do you have an indication of where they are? Do they have any sort of strategy moving forward now for the refugees?
Well, there isn't any strategy now. There isn't any leaders here that will be able to basically lead the group forward as to what is the next step, where to go. And as I said earlier on this morning when we spoke to them, they basically said, and law enforcement officers weren't here this morning, and they were saying that they're going to stay here up until a point the UN or High Commissioner's Office decides to come to them and assist them in taking them to a third country where they will be able to seek shelter.
I remember a bit earlier on, Nasipi, the fact that the third countries that they were talking of were countries of their own choice. Are they now more negotiable? Are they willing to go to any other country apart from South Africa?
Well, some were not, before law enforcement officers arrived, some were not even willing to sit around the table and negotiate in staying here. However, the person that we spoke to in a live interview not too long ago said that if they'd be accommodated, they will be willing to go back to the various communities that they are coming from in South Africa. However, they are still looking at leaving South Africa for good. One even said that he is even willing to go back to his home country, knowing very well that it's not safe.
I can hear, Nasipi, that the refugees have a lot to say. Could we perhaps get a couple of comments from some of them as to what it is that they're advocating for? I see them, some of them kneeling down with their hands outstretched. What is it that they're saying?
Refugees are dying! Where you? What is allowed? United States!
Live on News from Africa. What is it that you want? What is it that you want?
As you want, no more South Africa. As if it's Zimbabwe, if it's Botswana now, we must leave this country. We don't want anymore. You can see the way they're treating us since yesterday. They're chasing us. We didn't even rest, not even sleep. They said this is early in the morning. We didn't even brush even water by our mouth. Where's the international law? Where's the international law? Where's the international law? We don't have place to go. They want Atlu Khalija to kill us. Where's the international law? International law, where are you? Where are you? Where are you?
We have another person here who's with the family. What is it that you want, Mama?
I want to go to my parents' land. I don't want to be here anymore. I'm sick and tired. Since we are here, we've been suffering. Since when? This boy born here in South Africa, he doesn't have nothing. I want to go. They are swapping our way. We want to go. We don't like your paradise. I want to go.
Are you willing to go back to your home country, or do you still want the UN High Commissioner's Office to repatriate you into a third country?
Yes, I want to go. I'm waiting for UN. They must come. I'm sick and tired for this country. I'm suffering a lot. I want to go. I want to go.
What is government South Africa? What is it?
Where is Mandela's government?
Emotions are very high. People are angry, high emotion. One lady is saying that she just wants to leave, even if it's going back to her home country, as I said earlier on, and they have nowhere to go at this very moment. And they're asking, where is the government when law enforcement officers are treating them in this manner? With the roads blocked, they have nowhere to go. They're basically in the middle of the road with law enforcement officers blocking each of the roads that they are supposed to leave.
I wonder, Nasipi, if any of the authorities there from the law enforcement have spoken to you or have said what their intentions are moving forward, and until what point will they be actually following the refugees? Because it's very clear, as you said earlier on, that they are stuck between a rock and a hard place. They literally have nowhere to go. And as the city of Cape Town has said, they have no accommodation to provide them. There is a long waiting list, and they are certainly not on that list.
Definitely. Well, it's not even a matter of nowhere to go now. They basically stuck in the middle of the road. As you can see, law enforcement officers have formed a human chain on one side of the road, and further down the road, law enforcement officers have blocked off there as well. So they're basically stuck here with nowhere to go. And literally, should law enforcement even move and allow them to move from the street and move away from the park, they'll still have nowhere to go. So it's going to be a very long day. As you can see, emotions are still very high. Refugees are calling on government to intervene and hoping that something comes out of today following what happened yesterday.
Nasipi, we'll leave it there for now. I will be signing off, but you are still on the ground, and Thabo and the rest of the team will be continuing with the news feed for the rest of the day. We'll certainly be touching base with you as you keep the nation abreast as to what is happening on the streets of Cape Town.